everybody, it's Jamie Lee from HakunaMoscatoMoms.com, and today I wanted to talk about my experience with the Walt Disney World Marathon. It's different from most people's experience with this race, and probably different from most people's experience with just marathon running in general. So I thought it would be really fun to share it with everybody. I always get asked about it, so I thought this would be a great way to kind of just centralize all of my thoughts and feelings and emotions and tips I have relating to that. So I'm going to rewind back to even before I had kids. I've always wanted to do the Run Disney races. Obviously, I'm a huge Disney fan, and I'm a runner as well. So up until this point, I had only done 5Ks, 10Ks, 8 miles, and a half marathon. And in March 2016, I had my second child in less than 2 years, my son. And when I went back to work 4 months later, to my surprise, I was offered a spot to run on the Cigna team, which is a big sponsor for Marathon Weekend. Because they are a provider at work. I work in health benefits. So I thought it was a great opportunity. I said yes right away without knowing anything else, any other details whatsoever. And they offered me to sign up for as many races as I wanted, or whichever race I wanted, which I thought was really cool. But I chose the half marathon because in my mind, the 5K and the 10K just was not enough time to run on Disney property. If I was going to do this, I wanted to be able to see a good amount of property. But I was realistic with myself. I had never run a full marathon yet. I was exclusively nursing my son, taking care of my toddler, working. So all of that crazy stuff that us moms take on in that first year of life with the little one. So I said no thank you to the full marathon, and I signed up for the half, and I trained as best as I could over the summer and fall. I'm a runner to begin with, so I like doing longer runs on the weekend, 6, 7, maybe 8 miles. I have an 8-mile race during the summer that I participate in. So I get, decent mileage in anyway for a half marathon training plan. But the unique thing about Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend is it falls right after New Year's. It's that first week of January. So I live in New England, and training during November, up to November wasn't so bad. And then with December, just busy schedules in general, and then the weather getting really cold outside. My training wasn't as great as it should be, but I really wasn't running for time either. I was running for the experience of the Run Disney race, and just kind of getting back to feeling like my normal self after having 2 babies so close together. So I think the most I ran for my training run was up to 12 miles. And in some cases I was running a lot, like maybe 6 miles out on the road, and then I would come home and do like 2 miles on the elliptical or an equivalent of that, and then get back out there after I've warmed up a little bit. So it wasn't all picture perfect half marathon training, but it was the best I could do, and I knew how to safely take the level I had trained up to and apply it to the half marathon, or at least so I thought that was going to be my plan. So come January, my parents agreed to come with my husband and I and our kids to Walt Disney World for Marathon Weekend. And looking back on it, I wish I had signed up for like the 5K and the 10K and the half and done multiple races. And you'll kind of see where the story goes in a minute. But if I had done that, I probably wouldn't have ended up running the full marathon. So we get there, and the weather is warm. It's January Orlando weather, so it's not like lay out at the pool in 90-degree heat, but it's certainly warmer than New England. And the weather looked really great for the week. I had been checking it as much as I could before we left. I had planned a little like Lily Pulitzer matching princess coordinated outfit. I wasn't in full costume, but I had my sister-in-law make me a shirt that said full princess half marathon. It was super cute. And then as it kind of got closer to race day, the weather started to take a little bit of a change. Not too crazy, but it was starting to get a little bit colder. And then the day before the half marathon, not even the day, like the night before, we went to our scheduled dinner at the Yacht and Beach Club, and everybody started whispering to each other about this email that we all got. And it was due to predicted lightning overnight. The half marathon may get canceled. So I kind of looked at my daughter, who was 2 at the time. I had been talking up this race, telling her, Mommy's going to run through the castle. You're going to get all these cool pictures. And I just thought, I cannot leave here without running. But at this point, the 5K and the 10K had already come and gone. And our options were looking really, really poor. So I just kept praying and praying, like, please don't cancel, please don't cancel. We sat through dinner, and by the time we made it back to her room, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock, there was the confirming email that said, yes, it's too risky for the crews and the volunteers to set up the race course with the medic tents and the water breaks and all of that overnight, because as many of you know, Run Disney races start at like 5:30 in the morning. So setup for that along the whole course starts overnight. And they were just too fearful of lightning causing safety risk. So they canceled it. And Run Disney is a really, really well-oiled machine. I say that a lot because they just have everything down to a T. Like, everything is taken care of. Everything is thought of. The staff that puts that whole production on is really, really good at it. So I was so bummed, but I kind of just had to think in my mind, like, there's a reason this is being canceled. It's not safe for people to be out there overnight. And if it's limited crews getting out there overnight, or if they have to cut short on their setup, then we, the runners, suffer the next day on a course that's poorly set up or poorly staffed, etc. So I went to bed that night really bummed and just super sad about it. Happy to be in Disney World, of course, with my family, but just sad that this race I'd built up in my mind was canceled. So my mom and dad were staying at a different resort. They were staying at Saratoga Springs, and they were on the bus back. And my mom texted me, and she said, I'm sitting next to a lady. She said that they're probably going to offer you a chance to transfer to the full. And I was laughing because, like, no, I barely trained for the half. I'm not just going to, like, wake up and run a full marathon, Mom, but thanks. Thank you for making me feel better. And so I went to bed. And then I woke up, as us nursing moms do, around 2 a.m. to nurse my son. And I just put him back down to sleep. Everyone in my family was sleeping. And I checked my phone, and we got another email. And the email said, you can exchange your half marathon entry for several different options. One was just a free entry to any other Run Disney race coming up. I think it might have been within 2 years from that date. They kind of gave you a bracket of time. And so even though I knew I wanted to keep doing these races if I could, and I kind of knew my family goes down to Disney annually, if not more. My parents are DVC members, so I didn't really need to cash in on that because I knew we would be down for more Disney trips anyway. And, you know, I would sign up for another Run Disney race eventually in my life. The other option was to trade it for, I think it was like 1 or 2 tickets, like park hopper tickets. And so my boss who I traveled down there with, she did that with her family. So the next day she had found a group of people that were still going to get those miles in. Like, there were a lot of dopey registrants too that were really bummed about this because they wanted to count that half marathon as part of their dopey challenge and that medal that they would get. So she kind of found this little group that ended up running 13.1 miles around Disney property. And it was really cute that day because people had set up like little makeshift spectator and water stations just kind of sporadically around the resorts and the running paths on the resorts, kind of expecting some of us half marathon people to be wanting to do that and make up for it. And it was rainy that day too, so some people were doing some road miles, and then they were switching and doing some treadmill miles in the resort fitness centers. And so that's what some people did. They traded it in for tickets and they got their 13.1 in somehow else. And even though it was an official Disney half marathon, it was still that mileage that they had come to run. Because, us runners, these long distance races, we're training for months up until this point. So, and then there was the option that I took, and that was to transfer to the full marathon. Everything paid for, was an even transfer. The only thing I had to do, aside from participate in a full marathon, was go back to Wide World of Sports and exchange my entry. And so when I did that, I got my half marathon medal, which I did not earn, but this was supposed to be a milestone for the 13.1, the 20th anniversary. So they had all this special memorabilia. I have the race shirt as well. And yeah, it's Donald. For those of you that don't know, he's the mascot for the half. And so I picked it up. It's the 20th anniversary. You can see it right there. And I'm like, I didn't earn this, but thank you. And I signed up on a whim for the full marathon. It was pouring rain, and I had my poor kids, trekking all over Wide World of Sports with my husband on and off these buses. It was pure craziness and chaos. And I had many moments when I just stopped and was like, what am I doing? Am I wasting our vacation? What is happening? Side note, I had also planned to do the parks on the days following the half marathon, because leading up to it, it's New Year's and then it's race weekend. And so the parks are really busy. And while my husband, bless his heart, indulges me in this Disney love that I have and definitely enjoys our vacations, he's just not somebody who wants to be there on the highest crowd level days of the year. Me, I could take anything, but he could not, and certainly my children wouldn't want to either. So we put all our park days for when everybody else went home, and we stayed, and we were going to be there on the lower crowd level days. So I kept thinking to myself, am I ruining our experience in the parks by having this crazy idea? I don't know. So I stood in line, I transferred, we went back to the hotel. I had planned a birthday dinner for my dad that night. I had gotten us reservations at Raglan Road. We're an Irish family, and it's all my dad's side is Irish. So, not the best for carb loading the night before a race, but I just kept a really laid back attitude, as I usually do with things when they go awry, and loaded up on the soda bread that they offer, which is really good, and laid off the alcohol, tried to hydrate as much as I could. And then also at this point, the weather dropped. The temperatures dropped, I should say. So the wind picked up immensely, and the temperatures were now in the 30s. The 30s. I'm from New England. I don't even go out around my area and run in 30-degree weather. And here I am with my cute little tank top and Lily Pulitzer running capris, thinking that this is going to be my race outfit the next day. And no, not for a forecast of 30-degree weather. So we ate our dinner at Raglan Road. I ran over to Under Armour in Disney Springs. And they actually had, I think 15 or 20% off for Run Disney Race Weekend participants. You just had to show them your email. So I pulled that up and I bought winter running gear. Literally the last thing I thought I would purchase from my beloved Disney Springs shopping. But yeah, Under Armour winter running tights, Under Armour winter running quarter zip pullover, and then I had a couple layers under that, and then I had just regular throwaway layers that I brought anyway. So for those of you that don't know, you can kind of layer on just old cheap clothes you don't want, and get rid of them, never get them back, don't bag check it or anything, but you wear them at the start of the race because there's a lot of waiting before a Run Disney race. And you can get rid of them on the course. And then I have been told, I think I read somewhere, that Disney actually goes and picks up all of those throwaway levers, launders them, and then donates them. So I don't know if that's official, but I've definitely read that before. And so I layered up everything. So I had, my cute shirt that I had specially made for this event, my tank top, layers over that, the quarter zip, and then more layers over that. And that was as ready as I was going to be for this marathon. So we get home from Disney Springs. At this point, I had gotten a lot of mixed kind of commentary from passerbys that we were meeting along our trip and our journey. So one person told me, don't worry about it. Even if you fall to the way back of the race, as long as you maintain a 16-minute mile, you won't be swept. And so Disney has, those sweepers at the back of the race. They cross right after the last person crosses the start line. And they can tell people to please excuse themselves from the race if they can't maintain a certain 16-minute per mile pace. And so those were the people I was really afraid of. And there were some people who were very seriously there. They were there for a Boston qualifying time. They weren't so happy with anyone who came to walk the marathon or slightly jog it. They were kind of psyching me out a ton, saying, you're going to get hurt. This race isn't for you. That's a crazy idea. Then I would come across somebody who would be like, oh, we do the Dopey every year. We do Jeff Galloway run, walk, run. You'll be fine. There's medics on the course. There's water. There's nourishment. Us runners are always talking each other up and motivating one another. And so I was getting a lot of mixed reviews, but it didn't matter. My nerves were still just completely in a ball. So we got back to the room after Disney Springs. I put the kids to bed. I put out my stuff for the next morning. I set my alarm for 3:15. Barely slept that night at all. I barely sleep before a 5K or a 10K, so let alone a marathon I just decided to run a few hours earlier. I barely slept. I woke up and pumped so that my son would have breast milk to drink while I was gone. And the kids were going to stay with my husband for the day. My parents were going to come and meet them, just kind of help out in the morning. Previously, I didn't really have plans for them to meet me on the course because had I been running the half as I had planned, that's a very early call time for any spectators, and certainly adults or older children might be able to do that, but my kids were babies. It takes forever just to get out the door on a good day. So I wasn't planning on my family meeting me on the course at all. Just kind of looping back around, getting right on the bus, coming back and seeing them after all was said and done. So with the full marathon, my husband and I, our plan was just stay in contact. You have your phone. I have my phone. Update me as you're running. I think you could, he would say to me, I think you can do this. But you do whatever you feel like is the best choice. And I was just kind of like, okay. So I left, and through the Disney Signa team, I had race retreat, which was really nice. So it was absolutely freezing cold that morning, 32 degrees. I think the highest it got up to was 38 for a while there. The wind was crazy. So when I got there, again, I was kind of making friends with people on the bus, telling them I'm a transfer from yesterday. I don't know what I'm doing. And there were some people who were talking me down, and then there were some people who were trying to build me up for this experience. The other thing too is I got to keep my corral from the half marathon, which was Corral D, which is pretty early on in the corrals. So that was kind of boosting my motivation as well, kind of making me think I might actually be able to do this and not get swept, because if I cross earlier on in the race pack, the start line, then it's 16 mile per minute pace from the last person in Corral GG, crossing the start line. So that gave me a little bit of wiggle room. So I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. And I get to the race tent. It's so warm and cozy in there. I was so grateful to have that pass. The night before, I just kind of had to think on my feet. I'm a dietitian, so I knew what I needed to run. I had never trained for a full marathon, so I just went with what my usual go-to is the morning before regular long runs, training for a half. So I grabbed a banana, I grabbed a big thing of coffee, I grabbed a bagel and a Cliff Bar. I woke up like a few hours later starving, so there went the Cliff Bar. And I had the banana and the coffee and a little bit of the bagel before I left. Then when I got to the race retreat, I had a little bit more coffee and water. So because I was like, at this point, I really need to let off the caffeine. I need to hydrate. And then I had a bagel or half a bagel with peanut butter. And I think I saved like another half banana or something to have as I was walking to the course. And while in the race tent, there's music pumping. There's people so excited. There's nervous people who are doing this for the first time. But pretty much everybody there, like I didn't find any other transfers. I know they existed, but I could not find any of them. And everybody else was there, had trained for this run. So I'm just making small talk with a couple people here and there, kind of stretching, trying to calm myself down. And I see Jeff Galloway. And I walked up to Jeff Galloway and I just was like, hi, how are you? He's just talking to random runners coming, going, and I just said, I'm a transfer from yesterday. I'm going to give this a go. And he said, well, conditions today are pretty good. It's dry outside and it's pretty warm. And I thought, he's crazy. It ain't warm outside. But if he says, like, this is doable, I'm going to try it. And I should mention the night before, too, I was, like, frantically Googling like how to run a marathon without training, and the weirdest articles came up. Definitely none that I would ever suggest actually taking very seriously. But for people who don't want to do a lot of running, the run, walk, run Jeff Galloway method is definitely something to think about. If you're a beginner runner, or even if you're coming back from an injury, or if you're training for long distance for the first time, it's definitely something to look into. Okay, so anyway, now we're headed towards the start, and I'm freezing cold at this point. I stole a Marlar blanket. I'm just trying to stay warm. I'm running back and forth to the porta potty, just peeing over and over again because I just had so many nerves and probably all that coffee and water. And I'm going back and forth, and then finally it's time for our corral to start. And so there's fireworks. There's the awesome announcers. It's getting everybody really hyped up. There's the characters come out, Mickey Mouse is out there, and the gun goes off and I start. So at this point, I had kind of made a plan that I'm going to run my half marathon. I'm not going to run it full out as I probably would have ran the actual half marathon because I want a shot at finishing this thing, but I'm still going to run it. I'm not going to walk until I get to my 13.1. So I get out and I'm doing kind of a slow pace, 10, 11 minute pace. And that takes me on the highway, the roundup down, then the highway, and then over to Magic Kingdom, the parking toll, and then over by the Contemporary, and then over by Space Mountain. And then the moment that just kind of was so magical for me was turning that corner from the side entrance of the Magic Kingdom and seeing the castle lit up. It was still dark outside at this point because, like I said, I had an earlier corral, so we probably started running like around 6 a.m., give or take. And this is now coming up on miles 4, 5, 6 in the Magic Kingdom. I just saw that castle shining so pretty. And I'm getting emotional. Like, I can get emotional now even thinking about it. And all the Christmas decorations. I hadn't even been to the park yet. So I'm, like, seeing the park for the first time this trip. And it was breathtaking. And then all along the lines of Main Street USA are spectators. So people that got out there to cheer everybody on, and the cowbells and the yelling and the clapping, and people are rooting for you. Your bib has your name on it, so they're yelling, "Go Jamie Lee!" and it was just amazing. So as I'm kind of turning the corner, I stopped for a character picture with Donald over at the little Dumbo Circus area. And I'm just running through this park that I love so much and seeing it for the first time unoccupied, like being used for Run Disney, but not its normal use that I've ever seen it used for before. And then I run through the castle, and as I'm doing all of this, I start video storing it on Instagram. And this is kind of like when it was new, just so that my husband, when he woke up, could show my kids, because I knew they had been so excited for me. So I was storing a little bit here and there, and then just going through the castle. I videoed and I said hi to my kids, and Anna and Elsa and Kristoff and Olaf were cheering you on at that point. And that's when I was just like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I made the right decision today. This is awesome, and I'm gonna do this. So I'm running, and there's the photo pass people, and I'm taking selfies, and then we went from Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom next. So then it's like more road running, and then Animal Kingdom you go in through like a behind the scenes entrance. And that's when I finally hit my half marathon mark, 13.1. So I was like, you know what? I made it here. This was my plan, but I'm feeling great. And in my mind, I had always said to myself, if I really feel bad, like this is a bad idea and I'm not going to make it, there's medics and I can call for a medic. So, that was kind of my plan the whole time. And I had imagined that like Run Disney was going to make 13.1 a big deal in Animal Kingdom, because I just thought they know some of us are transferring. So maybe there's going to be like a whole group of 13.1 people that are just going to stop there. I got to 13.1 in the middle of Animal Kingdom, and there's nobody there. It's just the mile 13 marker. That was it. I'm passing some people who are stopping for like a beer and stuff, as some runners do in the middle of the Walt Disney World Marathon. And I've even heard that people go on rides. I know that people go on rides. I couldn't really be bothered with that, even though I would definitely do that next time if I ever did this again. But so I'm like, okay, now I'm in the middle of Animal Kingdom. Nobody's here. To group up with as like a stopping point. I'm just gonna keep going. So I finished Animal Kingdom, and now the parks are starting to open up. So when you kind of go out a different exit of Animal Kingdom, another like behind the scenes exit. And as I'm running across the front of Animal Kingdom where you walk in, like as if you're going to the park, there's this guy dressed up like Mufasa, holding a mini, like, not a mini, but a small Simba, stuffed Simba, and with the Lion King music, like, I don't know how he planned this so perfectly, but it's the Lion King music that's now bursting through the stereo in front of Animal Kingdom. And I don't know how I got so lucky to just happen to all of a sudden be behind this guy. I didn't see him anywhere else up until this point, and now I'm right behind him. And the crowd, which is definitely spectators there for Run Disney, but it's also people just kind of getting in line for rope dropping Animal Kingdom at this point. Everybody was going crazy. So that, now I'm at like mile 14 or 15, and that's like really, I just felt so lucky to be there, so fortunate to have this experience, and I'm gonna keep going. Then I get back to more road running, and around mile 16, I finally stopped to walk. I had been really scared to just stop to walk at that point, because I was like, I don't know if I'll ever start up again. So I stopped to walk, and Run Disney races are also known for really, really nice, friendly, supportive runners, especially in like mid-pack of the corrals and further back. And this guy just runs up to me. He's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm just kind of having small talk with him. And he's like, so what are you doing? Or how do you feel? I'm like, well, I'm a transfer for yesterday. I'm just trying to figure out. I literally had my phone open, and I was looking up on the PDF that Run Disney sends to you, all the stops for like medic and nourishment. And I'm trying to like Google the course and figure out where I was as I'm running. And then I finally stopped to walk, and then this guy is talking to me, and he's like, so what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm just trying to decide if I'm going to like really finish this or not. I'm going to transfer from yesterday. I mean, how many times did I probably say that? 1,000,000 times. He's like, oh, you can do it. He's like, yeah, walk whenever you need to walk, but you'll be fine. The sweepers are like way, way, way back there. Even if you stop to walk from this point, he's like, chances are you would still make it. He's like, as long as you make it to mile 23 or 4, nobody can sweep you anymore because there's nowhere for the buses to go. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I could do this. I'm really going to do this. So I'm running. I texted my husband. I'm like, I'm going to do it. So if you guys, they were staying at Yacht and Beach Club. I'm like, and that's where mile 24 and a half is. I'm like, if you guys want to go out there, I'll text you as I'm getting closer, and I'll actually be able to see you on my course, which is totally what my kids wanted anyway. And I just kind of like pretended that they would have the opportunity to see me running, even though I knew they probably wouldn't. And all of a sudden, this was kind of all coming together. So then we go and do a loop through Ride World of Sports, and then you do a loop like in the stadium, and then you make your way back towards Hollywood Studios. And then once you get into Hollywood Studios, again from the back entrance by Tower of Terror, they can't sweep you because there's no place for buses to be. They can't make you stop because maybe they can make you stop, but there's no way to get you back. And I kept kind of doing the math in my mind. Like, I pumped at 3:15 this morning. My son's going to have to eat pretty soon. Like, if I stopped and tried to find a way back to the resort, I'm going to get held up for hours. And, like, I need to nurse him. He needs to eat. The quickest way to get back to him is just to keep running and finish this darn race and then take bus transportation to our hotel. So we are at this point now through Hollywood Studios, which was really cool because now people are like in the parks all over, and the parks are open, and they're all cheering me on. And then we go along the water where the sidewalk is that takes you from Disney Hollywood Studios to the boardwalk and Swan and Dolphin area. And we're running there, and I might have stopped to walk a couple more times, but I really just was too scared to get too comfortable with that. And then I finally got to see my kids right outside the beach, the beach club, which was kind of just perfect timing because we were actually transferring resorts that day. So my husband and my parents, my husband checked out, my parents came to meet them, and then everybody was there. So like my mom and dad were there, which was just so random that, you know, they would make a race on this one in Disney and having it be a full, and then my kids and my daughter was so happy to see me, so it was great. And then at that point, I was only 2 miles away. So I stopped for a couple of minutes, gave some hugs, kept going, went in, and then of course you don't go the short way from International Gateway where you enter from the Epcot side, or I'm sorry, the boardwalk side into Epcot. You don't go the short way, you have to go the long way around the World Showcase, and so I'm doing that. And at this point, not a ton of spectators in this part because the parks are open now, and the people in World Showcase opens at 11, and I can't even tell you what time it was, probably around then. So people are just kind of trickling in now to World Showcase area. It wasn't really, really packed, but it was kind of quiet compared to the other parts of the race. And then I start to see the ball, Spaceship Earth, and I'm like, I'm almost there. I'm actually going to finish this. I start like crying to myself like a crazy person. Kept going. And at some point along the course, I was like, I think I'm going to aim for like 6 hours. And I think I ended up finishing at 6:10. Actually, yes, 6:10. My husband had this nice little plaque made for me with my time on it. I'm like, you didn't have to put my time on there, but that's okay. So 6:10, which is not a bad time. I mean, I was coming in with people who have trained for a full marathon for months. I'm running in with them, barely even trained for a half marathon at this point. And I finished the race. I almost forgot my medal. This will forever and always be my favorite medal ever. So I got this medal, which I actually did earn, unlike the half marathon medal from that year. And stopped for my nourishment boxes, took a couple of pictures in the little step and repeat areas. Got right on a bus and headed right to Saratoga Springs because my family was now transferring to that resort for the rest of our stay. So I got right on the bus. I was just so happy. I'm sending like alerts out to people because at this point some of my friends had started following in the story because I was Instagram storying and Facebooking a little bit, so that, you know, with the purpose of my husband showing my kids. But now I had like put together this little group that had been following me from back home, and I'm just kind of letting everyone know I finished, I'm okay, I made it, and that was it. And then I got to Saratoga Springs, and that's a whole nother marathon because my room wasn't ready. I didn't have any of my stuff except for my magic band, and my family, it took them like probably 2 hours to get to the resort, and I was freezing cold and like in shock that I had finished this marathon. And yeah, that's a whole nother story. But anyways, they finally showed up. I got right in the shower. I passed right out. Woke up, ate, and then by that point, like the kids were in bed, I was in bed. And then the next day, I took a couple Motrin, and I just kept walking. We had plans for, I think, Epcot, and we were doing Epcot, and I was a little sore, but I don't think in my mind, my perception of it, I was no more sore than what I would have been following the half marathon, maybe even like a fast 10K. So I felt really good. I was shocked by it all, and I'm sure it has to do with the fact that I was moving. I wasn't allowing myself to get too stiff. And then that night I had plans for a date night with my husband. My parents were going to watch the kids, and I was just so exhausted. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go to a restaurant. I couldn't put myself together and look all pretty for a date. It just was not happening. So I said, let's just go get a pizza from the Saratoga Springs quick service. A couple drinks, and let's go sit in the hot tub. And I did that. I sat in the hot tub for maybe like an hour, and that thing saved my life. I felt so much better. The next day we did Magic Kingdom. We had another park day after that, and then we came home, and literally by the time we came home, I felt fine. I wasn't even sore anymore. And I'm just so glad I did it. That was definitely one of those moments in life when it's like you have an opportunity. It seems really crazy and like a bad idea. But if you believe in yourself, if you know yourself the best. And I knew that I was in shape to some degree. I might not have been in my peak performance state, but I knew what my body was capable of. I'm also a dietitian, so I knew how to fuel along the course, which was helpful. And I did it, and I love to talk about it. Now, full disclosure, I should say disclaimer. A disclaimer is you should not run a full marathon if you did not train for it. Not a good idea. High risk of injury, at the very least. But it's just one of those things I'll never forget. And Run Disney just is so special to me because of that experience. But just because it pairs together two things I really love, Disney and running. And I did get to go back the following year and run that half marathon, so I finally did do that half marathon course, and I plan on doing a lot more. And I had always said to my husband and just maybe a couple of friends, maybe my parents, like not a lot of people, but I had always said, I have no desire to run a full marathon unless it's the Walt Disney World full marathon. That's the only one I would ever run. And like, as luck would have it, the opportunity literally fell in my lap. 100% just fell in my lap. And I did it. And I don't regret it at all. So I think maybe someday I'll do the Dobie Challenge. I definitely want to go back and do some of the half marathon challenges where you do the 10K and the half, or even the 5 to 10 and the half. I just think if you're going to do a Run Disney race and you have it in you and you're a big Disney fan, you've got to go for the longer distance because you'll just see so much more of the course in the park that way. And you won't regret it. So that's my story. Running a full marathon. No plans to do that, but I did it. And I live to tell about it with a pretty okay time and a really, really awesome medal and a great story that I'll talk about probably till the day I die. It's my glory days story. So that's it. I hope you guys stayed with me at this point. If you ever have any Run Disney questions, you can ask me. I'm not a professional trainer, but I can definitely point you in the right direction of where to find training plans by professionals, credentialed professionals. And if you ever have any marathon training nutrition questions, that I am credentialed to discuss with you. So thanks for listening and have a good day.